News tonight, the woman accused of killing pro cyclist Mo Wilson in Austin is back in the U.S. Caitlin Armstrong arrived in Houston this evening at around 5. Armstrong was on the run for 43 days until authorities arrested her this past Wednesday in Costa Rica.
Cycling contests are rarely life-threatening, given that biking communities are generally peace-loving, green-friendly groups that value fitness and healthy living. However, for one cycling community in Texas, biking will never quite be the same, following the discovery of the bullet-riddled body of one of their own. The twists and turns of this case made news all over America. Cheating, revenge, and love triangles make hot news in Hollywood, but amongst southern cycling communities are virtually unheard of. Hence, the murder of talented, free-spirited Moriah Mo Wilson and the bitter jealousy which prompted the horrendous deed shocked not only cyclists, but the residents of Austin, Texas. In today's bite-sized true crime recap, you'll learn not only how Mo's killer stalked her and prepared for her murder, but what lengths the suspect went to in order to establish a new life and identity before being captured by the authorities. Stay tuned for Love Triangle Murder, the tragic case of Moriah Wilson. Moriah Wilson was a regular, albeit much-loved girl. Friends and family described her as reserved, but always with a beautiful smile and an infectious love for life. Many photographs show her braided blonde hair, her hands gripping her bike handles, and her wide smile. She loved adventure, much like her athletic family, even heading off on ski mountains completely alone with only a walkie-talkie connecting her to the outside world. On the rare occasion she was home, she wrote down her big dreams in a journal. Her twinkling brown eyes lit up at the thought of a new adventure. Mo was known as someone who didn't talk much, yet was great friends with whoever she met. Graduating with an engineering degree from Dartmouth College in 2019, she first worked as a customer demand planner for a bike parts company before deciding to turn her passion for gravel cycling into a profession. Her unlucky romantic run-in with the briefly single Colin Strickland in the fall of 2021 was to cost her everything. Red-headed and lively, yoga teacher Caitlin Armstrong had it all. She was bright, beautiful, and committed to her long-term boyfriend, Colin Strickland, with whom she shared a house. She taught yoga and worked as a realtor while her cyclist boyfriend sourced his organic food carefully and shared his professional cycling journey with his thousands of followers on Instagram. However, a brief break in their relationship saw them both pursuing other people, even though still living in the same house. They soon reconciled and were living happily together when Moriah, whom Colin had briefly dated, met him at the City of Austin Deep Eddy Pool for a swim and a friendly dinner catch-up. Trouble, it seemed, followed her home, and her breaths were numbered once Colin dropped Moriah at her friend's apartment where she was staying. As an unsuspecting Moriah entered her code to her friend Caitlin Cash's apartment, the notification on Caitlin's app marked the time as 8:36 p.m. Caitlin thought that this meant that Moriah was safely home, so continued her work, but she had no idea what her dear friend Moriah was about to experience. The horrific sight that greeted Caitlin later that night was far beyond her wildest imagination. When she returned to her apartment, she found that the door was unlocked. Alarmed, Caitlin called for Moriah and then went looking for her through the apartment. In the bathroom, she discovered the horrendous scene of Moriah on the floor, soaked in her own blood. Crime scene investigators identified the bullets to be from a 9mm Jag. The murderer had shot Moriah twice at close range in the head. The third bullet, found lodged in the tile below her back, had gone through her chest as someone stood over her and fired directly at her heart. Everything about the murder screamed personal hatred and rage. Moriah had apparently fought back. Deep cuts laced her chin and her right index finger. CCTV revealed some signs of the murderer. A suspiciously parked SUV with tinted windows and bike storage on the back had come through the Maple Avenue driveway where Moriah was staying. Brake lights flashed into the camera lens as the SUV stopped at Caitlin's door. Whoever owned the SUV was potentially the killer, but who did it belong to? The twists and turns of the case began to be revealed once a suspect was identified by the police for the murder of Moriah Wilson. Strickland was first under the line of fire, but as his motorbike was seen on traffic cameras 8 miles away from Caitlin's apartment at 8:48 p.m., close to the time Moriah was killed, he was immediately ruled out. It seemed unlikely that he had murdered her in the 12-minute interval between dropping her off and being viewed on the interstate right after. However, the police felt strongly that he was hiding something. The black Jeep Grand Cherokee spotted on the neighbor's CCTV was soon identified as being registered to Strickland's girlfriend, Caitlin Armstrong. In fact, the vehicle had actually been spotted several times near Caitlin's apartment leading up to the murder. Strickland threw himself under the bus when he initially denied knowing Moriah when questioned about Caitlin's potential involvement. Worse still, Caitlin owned a gun gifted to her by Colin himself, and the caliber on the firearm matched the bullets that killed Moriah. A suspect was zeroed in on, the same Caitlin who had recently visited her sister at a known firing range to learn how to use a gun. In a strange turn of events, Caitlin was arrested the day after Moriah's murder, May 12, 2022, with the police using a 2018 outstanding warrant on a misdemeanor charge, failure to pay for Botox injections, to haul her in for questioning. Caitlin denied all involvement. However, her angry reaction when asked if Moriah and Colin were close gave police a clear indication of why she might have been the killer. Her date of birth didn't match the date recorded on the warrant, however, so the police had let her go. By the time sufficient evidence to make an arrest was collected, Caitlin had sold her Jeep Grand Cherokee for $12,200 and vanished into thin air. Sometimes, things said in the heat of the moment can feel important in hindsight, and this occurred to Caitlin Armstrong's longtime friend Chastine after her husband told her the news of Moriah's murder. Chastine recalled how Caitlin had expressed her desire to kill Moriah over lunch and drinks. Laughing it off, she had told Caitlin that she couldn't possibly be serious. "No, I really wanted to kill her," Caitlin had replied. Chastine, more than slightly alarmed, had told her friend that it was okay to feel betrayed by Colin's continued friendship with Moriah and that the right thing to do was to break up with him. Now, a hysterical Chastine called the anonymous police tip line, telling them how she recalled Caitlin telling her that she had bought a gun. Poor Chastine hadn't for one moment thought her compassionate, red-headed friend would go so far as to actually kill her supposed rival. Caitlin was on the run for more than a month. As a fugitive suspected of murder, she kept a remarkably low profile. Using a close associate's passport, she escaped from the U.S. using Newark International Airport on May 18th, just 6 days after Moriah's murder. Her travels were funded by the $450,000 Colin had given her as venture capital. The U.S. Marshals Service and Homeland Security relayed in their report that Caitlin strongly resembled the person in the passport she had submitted successfully to airport security. She was eventually located and arrested on June 29th, living in a hostel on Santa Teresa Beach in Provincia de Punta Arenas, Costa Rica. Old habits die hard, and in this case, she was located after investigators kept an eye out for local yoga classes. She had eluded capture by cutting and dyeing her signature red hair to a regular brown color, and appeared to have undertaken plastic surgery to change her appearance, explaining to the officials who arrested her that she was in a surfboarding accident. She had used the same false name to sign up for yoga classes that she had used on her travel documents. Caitlin was extradited to the United States after confessing in custody that she was indeed the person the U.S. Marshals were looking for. On July 21, 2022, she pleaded not guilty to the murder charge. She has fought her charges multiple times, with a bid to suppress evidence of her interrogation with the Austin Police Department being dismissed. The bid argued that she had not been properly Mirandized before being interviewed as a suspect in a murder investigation. Police laws state that before arresting a suspect, the police officers have to cite the suspects their Miranda rights. You might have heard police officers saying, "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say or do can and will be used against them in the court of law," just before making an arrest. This is known as Miranda warning or Miranda rights, and Caitlin argued that her arrest and the subsequent charges should be thrown out because she was not told about her Miranda rights. She also argued that the federal charge against her of unlawful flight to avoid prosecution was prejudicial, considering the immateriality of her confession. The health-conscious, kind, and friendly yoga instructor Caitlin Armstrong is currently being held on a $3.5 million bond at the Travis County Jail. Her trial has been rescheduled twice and is set to begin in October 2023. Family and friends of Moriah's are calling for justice, and online, netizens condemn Caitlin and state that if she wanted to start her life afresh somewhere else without Colin, she should have done so. Brutally ending the life of a bright, talented young woman on false suspicions of romantic rivalry was a senseless act of horror, and fleeing the country and changing her appearance only adds to an appearance of guilt. While the next part of this story is yet to play out in court, the tragedy is real for the family and friends of the bright, talented athlete Moriah Wilson, whose young life was so brutally and senselessly cut short due to her brief part in a love triangle gone wrong.